Coaching is one-on-one. A lot of it's one-on-one, and what you do in that process is you help the person gain clarity. So we went through a session together before, right?
Yeah.
We sat down, asked questions, and to help you dig deep, dig hard to really uncover your fears, your what's that's usually lying in the we don't want to call it subconscious because it's not exactly subconscious. It's there, right? We can't call it unconscious because we can't prove it's not there. So what we call it is metaconscious. So if you dig a little deeper, you can find it, right? So coaching on a one-on-one situation helps you dig into the metaconscious area and really uncover your fears. And and only by shining a light on your fears can you actually encounter it. Can you actually face it forward and tackle it. Right. And so that's so in a one-on-one session, that's what it's like. In a group session, coaching would be more of it's more in this case it's called coaching, but it's more teaching because you can't really dig deep with people. And one thing that we use is psychometrics. So we use the Big Five personality test to really help uncover different aspects of the personality. So personality, a lot of it is nature, right? Nurture is really important as well, but nature is a big part of it. And so as a result, we have a lot of what we call biological predispositions. So we have different ways where we lean, like inclinations to which we lean towards, these can be measured by your degree of neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. And that's what it's the closest thing that psychologists have been able to come up with in terms of a consensus. So these things, we uncover these for people, and as a result, it's like staring yourself in a mirror and knowing what your blemishes are and what you can do to fix it. So this is really important. For example, if you're an agreeable person, right? An agreeable person will have a hard time hashing out deals.
Right.
Because they tend to prioritize harmony.
Sorry, when you say agreeable, is that like a yes person, someone who always just says yes to everything?
In a sense, yeah, in a sense, right? So they prioritize harmony over conflict. When you are at a table and you're knocking out a deal with someone, and that person asks for a cut, like asks for a bigger discount. Right? I can't pay for this. Can you go lower? Agreeable people would tend to say, okay, right? And that applies across the board, whether it's negotiating for your wages or at the table where you're negotiating deals, you get a worse deal. Disagreeable people are like, no, screw you. It's like, this is what I want, this is what you want. It's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Right? Or sometimes really disagreeable people is like, I win, you lose, right? Donald Trump would be a highly disagreeable person.
Okay.
Right? But he's, at the same time, he's pretty strategic about things. Sometimes he's not though. So he's hit or miss. and it's also agreeable people tend to get into abusive relationships, right? So they get into relationships where they're partnered with someone else who will take advantage of them, right? Someone who's disagreeable, and as a result, they'll tend to fold a lot to the so my wife and I, right? I tend to be disagreeable. My wife tends to be more agreeable, and our dynamic is interesting because I'll be like, I want to watch this show, and she'll be like, can we watch this? I'll be like, no, let's watch this show, and then she'll be like, okay. After 10 times of that, and it happens it's like that every time, right? But after 10 times, she'll basically be like, you know what? I'm sick of it. You never listen to me. I'm like, where's this coming from? If you want to watch it that hard, you just tell me, right? It's like, I told you. It's like, you told me once each time, right? But for her, that's enough. I'm already trying to tell you what I want.
Okay.
But for me, it's like, I want this.
Right.
And as a result, you get into I wouldn't say it's an abusive relationship, but it's a relationship where I tend to get my way and she doesn't get her way. And so, you need to be cognizant of these things so that you can adjust accordingly. It applies at home, it applies to work. So this type of group coaching that's when you disseminate this type of information, and it really helps people. Can you imagine if you're a business owner, right? You're a young business owner, you're at the table, and disagreeable people tend to respect other disagreeable people. So if you're able to stand up for yourself, then they'll be like, okay, I can trust this guy.
Okay.
Disagreeable people tend to not respect agreeable people because they're like, I can walk all over you. Why should I
Right.
respect you?
Right.
Right? And that's why the best salespeople and the best leaders tend to have, and the best managers as well, tend to have a disagreeable profile.
So when you draw these characteristics out, like, how difficult is it to actually coach someone from being agreeable to slightly more disagreeable? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So essentially, if you want to coach someone from being agreeable to disagreeable, there are mechanisms you need to set in place, right? Practices. So, for example, drawing boundaries. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, kind of thing, right?
Right.
You know, you need to draw boundaries. You can't always have people step on you. So at some point, you just gotta say no. And there are always signs of, like, you know, when you're stressed, when you're in a bad situation, you're kind of aware of it, right? You see these patterns happening, especially if you're an agreeable person. You see these patterns, and the point, like, the key is to recognize these patterns and have mechanisms in place to like, and just rehearse it, right? Rehearsing is really important. So one thing I coached a youth on is, and she tends to say, go with the flow kind of thing. There are times she wants to say no to, hanging out with friends or, partying or whatever. But she can't say no because her friend asked her, right? So, and it's live. It's like, live, face to face, and she doesn't know how to say no. So one of the things I coached her on is, say, let me think about it. That's much easier than saying no for an agreeable person. Let me think about it, right? And it's not too hard. Let me think about it, and then when you get home, just text. It's so much easier to say no if you text
And you're
or
not in that
email.
situation, right?
You're not in that situation, right?
Right.
It's not like, there's that pressure where the person's in your face and
Right.
you gotta, yeah. So that's one good way. Another person, especially if you're a business owner, is if you're a business owner, and so people tend to start businesses because they are, they're specialists. Just say you're a designer,
Right.
right? You design, you make beautiful stuff. You're really good with it. You can adjust to your clients' needs. You're a designer, but you might not be a sales, right? And you might be a very agreeable person. So as a result, I would actually coach the person to, hey, you know what? Why don't you hire a salesperson? Like, it's going to be worth it. So one of the clients I worked with, she's a designer, right? Runs a designing firm, and when she was hashing out deals by herself, she was closing at around $3,000 or $3,000 for a certain package. She went out and got a salesperson, and that salesperson was able to close at $7,000 for the same package.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, and that's the difference. Like, that changes your bottom line so much. And the salesperson gets a commission, gets a cut.
Right.
But even with that, right, she gets rid of the stress of being at that at that negotiating table, and she gets more money as a result of that. What's not to like about it, right? And just being cognizant of these little things about yourself makes a huge difference.